It says the newspaper said the terrorists who targeted ATS chief Hemant Karkare, police commissioner Ashok Kamte, and encounter specialist Vijay Salaskar was speaking Marathi fluently. And this is Maharashtra Times.
Exactly. This is an Indian newspaper.
Not a Pakistani news channel.
It's an Indian newspaper categorically saying that the terrorist was speaking local Marathi language. No Pakistani on earth can speak Marathi language.
This is a regional Indian language.
This is a regional Indian language, a very local, and Indian media is saying that. Now, what has also, we find within this report we have documented a quotation, a statement by a very close friend of police officer Kurkure. And he says, I would like to quote it here, only hours before Kurkure's violent death, his close friend retired Colonel Rahul Gavardhan received an envelope. Kurkure called him to say he was sending him a confidential letter. This is how Times of India reported the story. He says that Kurkure, before his death, had sent a confidential letter to his dear friend. And obviously it suggested very categorically who is trying to kill him. Because his family also knew, they were receiving death threats. His house was threatened to be blown up. And this
That's why Kurkure's wife refused the compensation given to her by Narendra Modi.
Kurkure's wife, when Narendra Modi is the Mossad man in India. I'm not saying this. Indian analyst, Indian writer,
we will come to it also,
is saying that. So when Modi, once they killed Kurkure, the police officer, they eliminated him completely. They tried to give compensation to his wife, and the wife refused. Why would she refuse?
What does it mean?
It very categorically means she knew very well.
Kurkure must have spoken to her.
Exactly.
She knew the whole story.
She knew very well who was threatening her husband and family, who threatened to blow up her house.
And what was the story behind Narendra Modi?
Exactly.
Obviously,
and what is the story behind the arrest of Colonel Prohit and exposing of all these Indian fascists? This whole thing is known to the world. Everybody knows what's the story behind it.
Written in the Indian newspapers, been on Indian television channels as well. Sir, there is another interesting part. Mumbai gunman of British descent, right? Now, this is something which is very mind-blowing to me. It says 8 men arrested by the Indian authorities, and amongst them were British men also. Why this information has been suppressed?
You see, this is very interesting because RAW, Research and Analysis Wing, and Mossad are trying to fix up some kind of evidence against Pakistan. But in the heat of the moment, lots of information came out because naturally the media was there, lots of people were speaking. Even the ministers, the eyewitnesses
were trying to do too many things too quickly.
They were trying to do too many things too quickly. Primarily, they wanted to create a 9/11, but idiots as they are, they could not handle it properly. And they thought the way Americans were able to stage a 9/11, and after that they would able to wage a war against Afghanistan and Iraq, Indians would be able to do the same. The objective was this, but they mishandled it. They really goofed up big time because the Belfast Telegraph on its website very categorically says that the Chief Minister said today, UK, that 2 gunmen arrested after the Mumbai massacre were of British descent.
Yes, sir.
And they arrested 8 people, but this news was played down by British authorities. Indians are saying now they have only arrested 1 lone gunman. But in the heat of the moment, their minister acknowledged to the British Telegraph that they have captured 8 people.
8 people.
And they were from various nationalities. They carried American passports, British passports, Mauritian passports, and Malaysian passports. And this is, I'm not saying this, the British media and the Indian media is saying this.
And they've accepted this basically.
They have accepted this now.
Oh, yes, sir. And now, there comes the Mumbai photographer. Okay. So-called these guys containing all the Pakistani products, starting from the pickles to the matchbox to the flour, I don't know what for, making bread maybe, or the funniest was the floor mopper, and so forth. Anyway, it says there was this photographer. It says Mumbai photographer. I wish I had a gun, not a camera. Armed police would not fire back. It says Jeremy Taylor talks to the photographer whose picture went around the world. Now, Sebastian D'Souza, a gunman walks at this place with a gun and whatever. Go on, sir.
You see, again, what happens is, supposedly, according to the story, there were 2 gunmen who entered into a railway station and start killing people. And apparently,
initially, what the Indian media suggested, as if they were making a movie, that these people got into, they got out of that so-called the boat in which they left all the Pakistani products, so-called, and then they got into taxis. They were in a pair of 2 each, and then they paid the money to them, and then those taxis were blown. I don't know what sort of.
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
But what is happening is very categorically, You see, just look at the story, look at the scenario. Two gunmen enter into a crowded railway station, kill and wounded over 200 people. There are hundreds of policemen around them.
Security and everything, yes, sir.
Everywhere. Nobody shoots those terrorists. Then those terrorists walk out, start walking on the road, main highway, goes to a different location, probably in a hospital or on some other place, and still the police is looking at them and nobody shoots them. And I'm not saying this again.
And you're talking about a crowded place in Mumbai. Just imagine.
And these two men firing around start walking on foot. Now, the photographer, his name is Sebastian D'Souza.
Yep.
He categorically says, I told the police to shoot the damn men. And the police says, we cannot shoot them. We don't want to shoot them. They refuse to shoot them. They refuse to chase them. And this was something stunning, because the cameraman says, if I had a gun, I could have easily taken them out. And the police, of course, there are hundreds of them all around, nobody shoots them. Why? What's going on? Why were they being protected? Why they were allowed to keep on carrying out this massacre? Because later on we'll know why.
So 10 words a Pakistani would never say, because, you know, we have to make our viewers understand, especially those who are watching us abroad and who do not understand the regional languages of India and Pakistani. There are certain words which was recorded in that conversation. It says julm. We say zulm.
Again, during the heat of the moment, while Indians were trying to convince the world that the Pakistani terrorists are inside, they actually aired, supposedly, a conversation between a terrorist locked up inside and the Indian media. And that conversation is on YouTube, is on net, is recorded. And on that conversation, anybody who understands Urdu or its differences with Hindi can make it out categorically very clear. The person speaking that language is speaking pure Hindi. He is not speaking Urdu.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. And his accent is Indian. His accent is not Pakistani. It's like when the Irish Republican Army used to commit acts of terror in England, the British media would report, man with the Irish accent claimed responsibility. So accents matter a lot.
Absolutely, sir.
So, and especially, not just the accents, the words that you use. So this is very fascinating. Indians are trying to prove, initially, the media saying they were speaking Marathi, which is a local Indian language. Then the person who's speaking Hindi, whom they are saying is a Pakistani terrorist, no Pakistani on earth can use those words which that Hindi so-called terrorist was using. And this itself is comical, it's hilarious. In fact, it's ridiculous. So, coming to that, this is very interesting observation that you can make from this conversation released by the Indian media themselves. And one thing I would like to point out, Faisal, again is that the so-called terrorist whom they show as a Pakistani walking around carrying a gun was actually wearing a saffron band on his hand.
Orange band.
That orange band. And that orange band is called Kalawa. And if you go to the Wikipedia even, search what Kalawa is, and it categorically says it's a Zionist Hindu religious band worn for protection. And it is an orange-yellow mix with different connotations. And interestingly, no Muslim on earth would wear a saffron band. Saffron is not even an ordinary Hindu band. It's a band representing the hardcore Zionist extremist ideology. And this is something fascinating again, because the man they are presenting to be Pakistanis are either speaking Marathi or speaking Hindi or wearing saffron bands, and still their Indians are trying. And this is, everything happened within the heat of the moments, because they could not control the media at that time. Lots of things kept coming. And we recorded that. And this we have documented that now. All Indian and Western sources. Not a single Pakistani source we have quoted here. Now,
Zaid, what we'll do is we'll just take a break here, and we'll come back after this short commercial break. Stay with us. Don't miss today's episode of Brass Tacks.